So, welcome, Cityside community and everyone. We're here tonight to do a special healing and wellness gathering. And we're just going to start into it by sharing a little bit of where we are each at as a practitioner, a little bit of what's going on for us, and possibly a prayer or whatever else. So I just want to start by saying I'm here because I'm just so frustrated and I don't know what to do about it. It's like my heart is really ripping open, and I remember back to when I went to Hiroshima and I got to walk through the atomic park where the ground zero was of that first atomic bomb. And I just started weeping and I didn't know why. It just was coming over me, and I was coming upon this memorial to a child that had lost her life to leukemia because of this thing. And I just found myself not knowing what to do with the pain of the suffering. And somehow my ancestry is tied to this thing, and yet I had no part of it. And I mean, I've been going through the goo of this whole corona thing, and then I see this poor man, George Floyd, and I see that video, and it makes, I don't know what else to do. And so I called forth some of my friends, some of my spiritual practitioners to say, hey, what can we do? And so I just want to start with a short prayer to kind of set the ground, and after that, we'll just kind of move along. So there is one truth in the universe, and that truth is God. God's all knowing. God is all powerful, ever present, and eternal. And I'm one with this whole truth. I am that divine eternal expression. I am of that everlasting power. And it's true for me as it's true for each person in our beautiful world. Whoever they are, we are all one with this divine truth, this divine love with this divine wisdom. And so, from this unity consciousness, from this eternal and endless one truth, it's so easy to claim that our dualistic world is truly an illusion, that we are truly one despite all appearance, all evidence of separation. And there's merit in that view. It's the basis of science of mind and the affirmative prayers we speak. However, we can't deny the truth of our humanity that's rooted in duality and separation. Good and bad, right and wrong, these concepts have surrounded us our whole lives. We've been trained to promote and praise our goodness and deny and hide our badness. So, of course, we know that we don't like pain. We naturally reach out to fix it. We've got to get rid of the pain because it's bad, and bad's not good. How can this part of us ever accept that we are not bad because we're in pain? You can see how that spiritual truth of unity consciousness lures us. It beckons us to come to the light because there's no pain in the light and we'll just feel good. Yet it's a common mistake to run away from what is present by praying for what is not present. We must not bypass our very true and real human emotions right now. Our darts, our fears, we need to honor them. And we do that by listening to them, embracing them from a place of unconditional love. We cannot deny our present experience, yet we cannot give it power. We rise above by selection through practice, our faith in God, choosing the truth of our oneness. So I claim a deep peace for our world right now, a grounded, centered peace beyond all expression. I know this depth can absorb every pain, every anger, and help it be transmuted back into the light and love that we are surely made of. So I'm very grateful to hold these truths, to be with my fellow spiritual practitioners as we lift each other up and remind us of our true nature. So I just simply let it go into the love and the law. I know it's already done. And with that, I say, and so it is.
And so it is.
So next,
I can share since I
eh,
think like right next to you on the screen. So, first, I'm so grateful that you had a willingness to do this, to sit in the uncomfortableness of what's happening, because it is uncomfortable. And so I approach this thing in two very unique ways. One, I am fully aware of my divinity. I'm a spiritual being, living in a spiritual world governed by spiritual laws. I was raised that way. I know that to be true. I know that's who I am. And I know that as a spiritual being, something new is being birthed. Something is being transformed and transmuted from a painful past that goes back before we even were. And it started a long, long time ago, but there's an honoring that has to happen in order for it to be shifted. There's a new era that's being birthed that is based sincerely in oneness. That veil of illusion is being lifted in a real way, and people are waking up to their own divinity and to the divinity of others. That there is no separation, that we are all cut from the same spiritual cloth. We are all made in the image and likeness of God. So I sit with that, knowing that, and yet it is painful because I am a Black woman. There's no getting around that. I stand on the shoulders of great Black men and women that have come before me. I have 6 uncles and 4 brothers and nephews and loved ones and male friends that are affected by this just because people have weaponized their skin. And so I'm hurt. Sorry for the tears, they just came up. But it's real. So I sit right in the middle of this. And I've been praying and asking God, what shall I do? Knowing the full authority of who I am. And the answer was, I was born for such a time. The reality is we were all born for such a time. We have watched and witnessed history, and we have to make sure that we are on the right side of it this time. We have to make sure that we get it right this time, because there have been light workers before us that have taken up the charge. We know them by name: Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, just to name a few. Emmett Till, who was the first sacrificial male that we know of that's been recorded, that died by racism, by nothing more than that. So the dismantling of a system that has existed for years upon centuries is painful. It's hard to watch. I understand the riots. I understand the desperation of the looting. I understand all of that because I sit with the full authority of being a Black woman and understanding that pain of not being heard or trying to advocate for yourself when no one seems to be listening to what you have to say. So I have been challenged this week. I have had people call me, like Daryl said earlier, and you get the sobbing. You get the real pain of what should we do? And the only thing that I have heard for the last 3 days is you pray, you wait, you move into right divine action, and then you keep moving into divine right action. So I am at the waiting stage right now because I have not gotten an answer on what that divine right action is, right? But the answer will come. Because whenever there is a problem, a solution automatically is generated. That's how the universe works. There's a void, there's a need, and there's an answer and a right, divine right action. So I stand with the protesters. I stand with the looters. Because in oneness, we don't segregate and say, oh, I don't understand or I don't know them, I'm not part of them. I stand with all of it. And I am okay with sitting in the uncomfortableness of it all, knowing that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So just the idea that we would come together in the spirit of light and divine love to be that modern day way shower, to be the light when someone may be in darkness, to stand as a beacon of hope and aspiration. I'm here for that. I was made for such a time as this. We all were. This is our time to get it right. Let's not blow it by being afraid or trying to do, as Letty said, a spiritual bypass on it. Sit and be uncomfortable. The greatest things grow in the darkness. Think of that seed that you plant. It grows not in light, but in darkness. This is a time for us, the world, to grow into that real state of oneness and live, breathe, and move from that activity. So I'm grateful. Thank you guys so much. I bless your light and your purpose and your anointing on this earth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to chime in. So I gave a talk yesterday, which was profound, to wake up from the night of protests and the night of looting, and just be overwhelmed by it all, and yet still try to find some sort of message, not only to offer to others, but I needed it first and foremost for myself. And you spoke to it, Angie, that we are these spiritual beings having a human experience, and our spiritual practice is to help us stay bridged between the two. And at a moment like this, when I see death and destruction, when I see negligence and fear running so rampant, and an unconscious agreement to fan the flames of fear, that's what scares me more than the actual acts sometimes. It's really, really easy to just be a human and want to say F it all and do something rash, say something rash, or to unplug and numb out and go, I'm not a part of this, I'm out. And neither of those choices are necessarily ones that promote any sort of change, efficacy towards something shifting. And so where I found the guidance and direction was actually from something that I heard from Reverend Michael Beckwith earlier in the week before any of this started, just in general, the idea of hope, faith, and confidence. And that there's almost like a progression, when we say there's hope, there's this idea of, oh, I hope that happens. So there's this level of expectancy. We may not know how, but we've shifted out of not expecting it into a space of expectancy, and that lifts vibration, that lifts consciousness and frequency. And then there's a space of faith where we still may not know, but we've moved beyond a hopeful expectation, and there's almost a knowing that takes place in faith. That Hebrews passage of faith is the substance of things unseen. So it is unseen, it is unknown, but there is some substance that we actually glom onto. And this is where we start to lift, I believe, out of our humanness into our spiritual self. And then there's that space of confidence and conviction where we have completely detached from the how, and we just affirm, know, and declare that something has happened or something is to happen. And the golden thread that finds its way through these levels of consciousness of hope, faith, and hope, faith, and conviction is trust. And the challenge is that trust is not just a destination you get to and then it's good. Trust is something that is gained, and then usually by the fact that wherever there's two or more people gathered, trust is broken because someone says something, someone looks a certain way, someone has a history or a story that they bring to that relationship, and trust needs to be renegotiated. It needs to be reestablished. And right now, I see this as a call for trust to be really established in a way that it has never been in this country. As a Black man, I have a hard time trusting a lot of people dressed in blue and black with guns on their hips. I know intellectually why they are there. I trust the written word of the law, but I don't always trust the humanness of those individuals. And that continues to be evidenced in the behaviors of, unfortunately, a handful of individuals. And I was talking to my sister-in-law, who is a white woman, and she reached out to me over text message and said, I'm so sorry this is happening. I am pissed, I am angry, I am upset, I am sad. I have all of these emotions. I cannot imagine what is, gushing through your experience as an African-American male. And I said, thank you. And this is not the pain and the angst that is being experienced by many, in particular those that are not of brown or black color. This is not something new to me in my skin and being in this country. And it doesn't lessen what's happening right now, but I don't feel a sense of enrage because I have been dealing with how to grapple with this my entire life. And that doesn't make it okay, but I feel that one of the spaces as a practitioner, regardless of my skin color, but in terms of my humanness and my spiritualness, I am a trained spiritual practitioner and minister of thought. And I have this amazing, rich Black history of my human experience that can inform how I step forward in how I offer prayer, how I sit with the news, how I listen to individuals. And so I am not denying any of who I am. I'm actually bringing all of who I am forward. And I think that is the tough thing for many of us to do. Not that I'm special or better than anyone, but I feel like those of us who have been grappling with some of these issues of race, we have found a way to dance with it in our humanness, in our spirit. Just as Angie so eloquently went from declaring and moving into tears because emotion comes up and that's part of the experience. And we don't want to deny that. But there's a finessing, I guess, if you will, a spiritual finessing that moves through and around those emotions. And what I challenge anyone that is really having a hard time with this is that all of the emotions and feelings are okay. And to find someone, if you are able to connect with someone, find someone that is safe and just allow them to be. The biggest challenge, and I think what continues to propagate what is happening in this country, is everyone's trying to find some one thing to point a finger at and say, you're wrong, right? President Trump is, I don't understand that man. But he's trying to fight a rough situation by threatening people. That's not going to do anything except create a greater tone of threat in this country. And that doesn't make anyone calm. It doesn't make anyone peaceful. It doesn't bring any sense of salve to the situation, because what's most important right now is dialogue. If we are going to shift the conversation of our hearts, if we're going to shift the consciousness of this country, there has to be conversation and dialogue. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be challenging, and you're going to get angry, and you're going to get sad. And we have to learn how to be with this darker underbelly of our world. A lot of people don't want to look at it. A lot of people want to pray around it. A lot of people just want to say it's all good. And I do believe it's all good. And there is goodness moving through it as opposed to stepping sideways. And so that's kind of where I am right now. I'm trying to move through this. I am trying to be with everything. I'm not being apologetic for any fierceness in my tone. And I'm not asking anyone to change who they are for me. If I sit in front of someone who is trying to understand, what the hell is wrong with these looters? What's the hell with these rioters? I don't understand that. They are destroying the community. I understand that anger. And I also have an understanding of where that anger from the rioters and looters come from. This is not a new situation. I came across the beautiful speech of the other, I think it's The Other America by Martin Luther King. He gave it at Stanford University in 1967. And in that speech, it was 2 years after the Watts riots in LA and all of the burning that had happened around the country that had been going on for almost 5 years at this time, or 4 years at this time. And he said that rioting is the language of the unheard. So when people are not given a voice, or they attempt to speak and they ask to be seen, and they are not seen, and they are pushed under the carpet, and their neck is literally pushed into the concrete, then if no one is heard, if you've ever been around a small child that is a 4-year-old and they want that ice cream or they want that thing, and you keep saying no or you ignore them, what do? They have a temper tantrum. A temper tantrum is nothing more than a 4-year-old throwing a riot in their room or in front of you. And that is a microcosmic, I think, relatable experience that people can see, or maybe you can even remember your own childhood when you had one of those moments. That is what is happening right now in our country throughout all communities that are not only communities of color. And so there is a level of rioting, there is a level of the looting that I understand where it comes from. The one side of it that I believe needs to be completely addressed and does need attention that is firm is when there are people taking opportunity that have no reason to be upset and are not using this as a time to create any sort of voice. They're just going and grabbing. They're opportunistic, and sometimes you can't tell the difference. So then as law enforcement, as leaders in our community, we have to do, the first thing is to welcome everyone into the circle, and then we tease out who's doing what can we entertain and what can we need. But that's not a quick process. That's not an easy process. It takes time. It's going to take a lot of money because people are needed to be paid in order to do that. This is going to be a job of the country and for the country for years to come. And I'll start to close there, but just this idea of bringing our consciousness and our spiritual self into the human experience, but not let us push out our humanness. Our humanness has to partner with our spirit, because that's the only way that we connect, especially if our spirituality is different, right? There's so many different faith beliefs in this country. There are so many people that have no faith belief in this country, but all of those people need to come into dialogue. And that practice of inclusion, that practice of not othering, that's the biggest thing that just continues to propagate this. And that's what the president and a lot of other leaders in the government have done, is they continue to other and try to make themselves look good because they think they're doing something to shame someone or to put someone down. And that doesn't do anything except propagate and fan the flame of the issues in this country for the past hundreds of years. So my prayer tonight, the consciousness that I hold, is that everything that is up right now, I am not trying to put down. I'm just holding in acceptance and holding in light, and knowing that all of my brothers and sisters, regardless of your family's origin on this planet, regardless of the skin tone that follows your origin, that we all have work to do. And there is no one person that has lived a life so righteous that they can say, I'm not a part of this problem. No one. And if someone believes they are not a part of this problem, I will give you my phone number. Call me. Let's talk about it. Let's really talk about it. That's the conversation that we need to have. that's the conversation and dialogue and discussion that is going to do something to affect change in this world. And with that, I say, Ashe, Amen, and so it is.
So it is. Thank you, brother.
Whew. I'm really grateful to be in this circle with you all this evening. It has been just, it's been a lot. The understatement of the century, right? And, you know, I found myself just getting tuned into what was occurring in the world on Wednesday afternoon because I have a firewall up to the media. So I'm generally not trying to hear about the latest outrage and thing to be upset about. And because if I tune into it, it's all upsetting. So I'd never get anything done. So, but my husband came to me and he said, do you know what's going on? Do you know about, you know, what happened with George Floyd? And I said, I heard something, and I heard about the lady and the dog, and I heard about the, you know, this and that. It was just compounding. And I was just like, where do we start? Like, what am I supposed to really care about here? And he said, no, you need to see. And then I went and I saw. And as a mother, to see that brother in the last moments of his life, calling for his mother. Every other instance of police brutality that we've been rallying about and activated about mostly is gunshots, which are usually explained away as crimes of passion or, you know, their adrenaline or, but to watch his life slowly be snuffed out. So deliberately, so casually. It was like my pain body ignited like a pillar of fire. And I knew it wasn't all mind. I mean, I didn't know him. He's not in my family. And yet the fury of my ancestors and every other Black mother who's ever had to witness the injustice that happens to our men, our sons, our fathers, our brothers, our cousins, our nephews, our neighbors. I felt all of it at once. And what do you do with that? So I've been with that. And an interesting thing happened for me because I couldn't sit in my feelings. I had to go take care of my friend who had surgery, and I had promised her that I had her back. I got you, girl. I'm going to be there for you. And I took her to the hospital. I picked her up after surgery. I bathed her. I cooked all her meals. She leaned on me. I almost carried her back and forth to the bathroom. And she was a white woman, my children's godmother, my best friend. And it had absolutely nothing to do with our skin color. And it had everything to do with the love that we had for each other in our hearts. And so there's always two conversations going on when we're talking about injustice. There's the system of oppression that has to be dismantled. The language of that system of oppression has separation in it that says Black folks, white folks, Black and brown folks, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, all that language. And then there's the oneness and the love that exists outside of the system always. And so what I want my white presenting brothers and sisters to understand is that you can talk about love and light and oneness. And we know that that's true and that's real. And that is a realness that exists outside of this constructed system that we are all embedded in, that some people are terrorized by, some people are benefiting directly from it. Some people, you know, are conscious actors inside of it, and some people are just completely unwitting to it. And it's designed that way. So we always have to be aware that there's two things going on here that seem dualistic, because there's the truth and the power that's in back of all of reality. And then there's these things that we get to, as thought leaders, as practitioners, metaphysicians, we have some influence to create on the back of the power and the love and the oneness and the truth, right? And so where my frustration kind of bubbles up is when I see powerful thought leaders not using that power. So when I hear my white presenting brothers and sisters' hearts broken open, I say, thank you. Let it breathe, please. Bleed with me, keep feeling it. Because there's a pattern that happens inside of the system that has the incident, you know, and then the outrage, and then the discourse, and then the narrative shifts. And so what we witness when you have what's going on in the world with the riots and protesting and looting and destruction is that there's three agendas going on. There's the peaceful protesters, you know, exercising their First Amendment rights. There are anarchists who want to seize an opportunity to just go wild and break stuff and release pent up anger and aggression. And then there's organized crime. They're the ones who rented U-Haul trucks in preparation for this and went and put their boys, their crew in the back of the truck, pulled up to the store, smashed the windows and grabbed and put everything in the U-Haul and drove away. Okay, so what's predictable is that the media will conflate it and say, this is a result of this, and then the conversation gets muted. So just be aware of the pattern and how we get herded into these thought forms. It's like a thought virus. And what it's designed to do is to turn off your heart. So don't let these distractions turn off your heart. The love and the prayer and the awareness and the attention need to stay on dissolving the social contract that has its clause of injustice to Black and brown people. We are all privy to a social contract that has within it this injustice and oppression embedded inside of it. So as metaphysicians, you know, what is the mental equivalent that we need to tap into and articulate and name so that it can be drawn down into this reality? And to be with that and to sit with that. You know, the Creator put me here with all my gifts and talents and everything I've been saying since last Wednesday was, God, use me. What is mine to do here? How do I use my heart, my hands, my voice, my beingness? Everyone should be asking this, especially those who have access to an understanding of the laws and principles that govern this universe. You are at an advantage. There is absolutely something you can do, but it has to be done in your heart. It has to be done in your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And how do you do that in this instance? One of the ways is to withdraw your consent from the social contract that we're all under right now, that we are all in consent with in some way, whether unwittingly or not. The social contract that we're engaged in is evidenced by our birth certificates, our social security cards, the papers that we have. This is our contract with this system. So if we are participants inside of this system, then energetically do we consent with what's going on? Withdraw that consent. Okay, and just do it in your heart. You know, you can have everybody in your family be, you know, of a completely different political stand than you or whatever, but you can do this in your heart. to change your heart, to say that I do not consent to participate in this system of injustice any longer. How do I serve a higher vision for a world that works for everyone? Get in the inquiry of it. We're not going to have the answers yet. We still have to feel all the feelings, because what's happening is that we get in these arguments now. We're now in the distraction argument phase, where it's now looters, rioters, burning up, destruction. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Now we've lost sight of the injustice that keeps creating this over and over again. Not just the brutality, but the inequity that has people desperate. In my father's neighborhood on the South Side, they looted the grocery store. Why? Because people need food. So don't forget, if you're sitting comfortable and you haven't had a second thought about your needs being met, don't forget that there are people whose needs are not being met, that inside this quarantine, people have no money, no opportunities for money, no food, and word from the government that they're not going to provide any more food assistance. They're not going to provide any more money or any of that either. So as a practitioner, for me, the dance has been to hold the high watch in the inquiry of what is the mental equivalent, what is my part to do to contribute to a world that works for everyone, to a movement and consciousness that will bring us through from where we are to where that world that works for everyone resides, because I believe that it's possible, right? High watch, and being down here on the ground to say, this is no, let's not change the subject. No, Target's gonna be okay. Target's gonna rebuild. Target's gonna restock. Okay. Broken windows can be fixed. Lives that are lost don't come back. But we can honor those who have given their lives. They didn't ask for it, but yet we keep saying their names and the list keeps getting longer and longer. We don't want any more George Floyds. And ask yourself this, we're only talking about George Floyd because he didn't draw any more breaths. How many people did the cop did lift up his knee and they were able to take a breath? How many of those are walking around? How many people are walking around that didn't die? Maybe almost did. Too many to count ever. So there's a lot of brokenheartedness, and don't ever forget that the anger and the rage has underneath it a deep sadness and sorrow and grief and heartbreak. And when you see my Black and brown people of color, my skin folk, in COVID-19 right now, the Black community has lost more people than any other group. I don't know a Black person that doesn't know somebody who hasn't lost family to the virus. So there's a lot more going on. Look beyond the surface and pray for what is yours to do. Who do you get to be in your heart and your mind first? Just start there to see something different, to even just see the pattern that's playing out, right? So rest.
Thank you, Letty.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to express my gratitude for everyone that has spoken. I feel you've really spoken from your heart, with vulnerability, with a lot of passion, and I just appreciate it. I appreciate the community, and I appreciate this opportunity to come together just to express what is in our hearts. So thank you to each one of you. I just wanted to say, when I was invited to come, I said definitely yes, because the past few days it's just been anger and sadness and hurt and all these just emotions just like churning within. And I know for myself, I have to catch myself, because I do that idea of spiritual bypass, of always looking, okay, well, what's the bright spot here? Like, I know myself, I can quickly go there, but the challenge has been, or the exercise has been, to catch myself as I'm wanting to point the finger and make somebody wrong, make it the government's fault, make it the president's fault, and make it white people, and just, all this. But just to catch myself and be like, acknowledge, this is a difficult situation. And I feel just even saying that out loud to yourself, this is hard, and just acknowledging and just seeing it for what it is and sitting in the discomfort. Like, that goes back to touching upon, your humanness. Like, yes, we are spiritual beings having an experience in this world of form, but there is that humanness that hurts and deals with the discomfort and the pain. So I just know for myself, it felt very helpful to just acknowledge just what a difficult, hard time this is. And then to exercise some self-care of, it's okay, safe yourself, and just to sit in that. And then to transition into spirit, what is mine to do? And to sit in the inquiry and understand that is coming. I do trust, Angie, I like what you said about we're birthing, something new here. And I am reminded that, nothing can change until it's faced. So I feel like, okay, it's in our face. This is the opportunity here and now to look at it. And I do recognize that breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. I know in my life, it certainly has got my attention and got me to change some things. So I just say all this just to say thank you to this community. Thank you to everyone here. I do believe that, all this efforts, it is an effort for a world that works for everyone. So I just appreciate that sentiment. I appreciate sitting in the discomfort to ask what is mine to do, and to wait to see. And I know, at this time, I'm especially reminded spiritual community is important. It's important to me. I know these things in my head oftentimes, but it's the connection with others, the reminder, the humanness that I feel connected to. And even now, just letting you know, I feel better having connected with my spiritual family, listening to some good spiritual truth that has been spoken on this call today. So I appreciate that. My heart goes out to the protesters, the rioters, everyone. But again, just grateful for this community, and I so appreciate just the opportunity to share and connect with each of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. So I guess I just feel blessed to be with you, to sit with you all, and thankful that you were all willing to jump into that sea of unknowingness with me here. And I think we've laid that first step forward to come together to remind each other of our spiritual truth, but to applaud and embrace and love up our humanness. So I think I'd just like to go to gallery view and ask you all to do a circle of prayer with me as I close out the live stream. And I just invite everyone that comes through and watch, please comment, chat up, talk with us, let us know where you're at. You've heard how we've talked, we don't know, but we want to do, if we need to sing Kumbaya, let's sing Kumbaya. But if we need to cry and get together, let's get together and cry somehow. I don't know what it is. I don't know the answers, but I do know that God knows the answers. And so I want to leave us in that faith. So put on your prayer hats and let's just start praying it up.
Are we going to pass, or are we going to?
I think we're just going to try and see if we can all talk over each other and do that.
Chamber of prayer?
Chamber of prayer, yeah.
Okay.
Never done a virtual one.
All right.
Ooh, this is
Let's see
exciting.
if it works. Come on, get your prayer on. One God, one truth, one love. Let it all
So
through now.
Okay, so in
right
this
here and now, I know the
I'm
truth.
so
I
glad.
stand in agreement and know that God is the only thing that is true.
Right here.
So right here and now, I call forth a healing
to
consciousness
acknowledge
on this planet,
And knowing that
knowing that everything that has to be
Every
revealed will
single
be
known
revealed.
and
And
unknown,
there's
we
nothing
lift
for us
you
to do
up,
except to
that
sit
is
in
the
the truth
spirit
that
calling in
God is
that
the
goodness,
underlying
calling
presence of
in that
everything that
oneness
was,
that
is, and ever
is
will
truth,
be.
that
And
is
in
peace, that
agreement,
is
my
all.
fellow light workers, knowing that right here and right
You
now,
are
that
so
God
much.
is.
We are this truth.
We send out our healing vibration and vibes and create sacred
Wow.
spaces for people to actually have spaces where they can
Oh, yes.
do and have the spiritual support and help
Knowing
that
that
they
truth
need.
right now.
all are. This is
I
a
release this
spiritual
prayer
knowing
knowing that it is already
to the
fulfilled
best of our
and done in the
ability.
mind
Pull
of
down
God. I know that it
Knowing
is
it
perfect
all is
let
true.
us
I
do
know my
that.
words never come back to me void. And together we affirm it, so it is.
Down that the spirit of
And
truth,
so it is.
love, the spirit of life is the one power
now.
always,
All things working
and
together.
that we hold that not only in consciousness,
Right
but we
here,
practice
right
it in our relationships, from the smallest to the largest,
So grateful.
letting God and Spirit move through it
Yes,
all
exact
with
prayer.
grace.
So good to know.
And I'm so grateful
Amen.
to declare this and to call upon this
That
power
if
and
I
presence to
release
make
it,
itself
I let it
manifest
go,
in our
and know
humanness
all
today and
good.
forever. And know this is the beginning and the opening to so much
So
more. So we
thankful.
let the beginning
Let
open
it go.
into the rest of this day.
And so
And
it is.
And so it is,
Amen.
everyone. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Let's move forward as purple.
It was wonderful to be with you all tonight. I wish you
Amen.